Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's the ceremonial witch back here. I don't know what I'm going to talk about today. I got a few ideas, and I'll probably just expand from there. So, I did want to talk about our lifespan and our life. Now, previous videos, I went over a bunch of different things that we can do for healing. Now, I put on the Science of Breath PDF on here, and I think around that time I figured out how to put on the link to the book. And if not, I'll put it in the description of this, as well as the other ones that go with that series. That's the beginning of a series of the Yogi Science of Breath and all that, and it talks about a lot of different things. So, a while back I talked about that, how to breathe, and then I put on, I think, 3 books, clips of at least 3 books. The audio file or the audio book, or whenever you get the book to read to you. Basically, I did the Sorcerer's Secret part about breath in there. I went over different breathing techniques. I put in the Yogi Science Breath or something to that effect. I put the audio file in there and put the link for the YouTube, because that one's free on YouTube. And I also put on there, I believe, Qi-gong something that's in the title anyways, and it's a very, very good book, and it's about how to breathe correctly and bringing in prana, being the energy of life, into your system. Around the same time, either before or after that, I put on Jerry Tennant, how he explains how to keep your cells healthy, how important an alkaline diet is to healthy cell growth, regrowth, having electricity, a high level electricity in your human body at all time, because he goes over the importance of how your organs basically are always becoming new or being remade. Like I said in many, many videos, even as recent as either my last one or the one before that, your heart's on the same heart you had. Your fingernails and your hair are a good example of that. Your hair, also another topic I'm going to get into probably later on, not today, but how important hair can be, why women and men alike in other traditions let their hair grow very long, how hair being an antenna for electrical, signals, impulses, basically, for getting maybe the energy of life to come through you, and or why certain men maybe lose their hair, even women lose their hair over time. A lot of studies been done about the testosterone levels in men losing their hair, kind of like why men who use steroids go bald, because they're putting in artificial, let's say, it's still testosterone nonetheless. I don't know if it's artificial or not, but they're putting testosterone directly in their body via needle or pill, when that's what the male nuts, our balls, are supposed to basically keep producing as testosterone, and this happens when we hit puberty. Now, women have less testosterone in them than men present, and that's why when a woman's going through menopause, if she's having very hard side effects, symptoms, whatever you want to call it, they take testosterone pills and all that, basically. But there is something there about our hair being important. And the job I work at, I deal with different old electrical pieces, such as transformers, which are for energy grids and all that, for energies going to houses. We're taking apart the old ones, and that's why I'm dealing with cancer-causing agents, basically, and why I get paid enough to do so. But I just think it's something I just want to put out here, so when I come back and look at my videos, if there's things I want to re-talk about, it gives me a hint in case I don't always remember. But I remember seeing today some very, very small pieces of copper, even aluminum, but mainly copper, because copper is a conductor of electricity. Electricity flows through copper very well. Everybody knows that. That's what's in our wiring, in our house, in our car, in our computers, phones, everything. Copper is in on most things. Gold is an even better conductor, but it's more expensive. So copper being a very good conductor, but some of the copper I have, we have to take off some of these things and put aside, because not only are we trying to dispose of these cancer-causing agents, but we take apart all the pieces, and once it's they have so much of it. I mean, they got warehouses full of different types of copper and precious metals, basically, and they're the kind of company that it's okay to sit on this until the price of these metals increase. Once they increase then to a point where they think it can't get any higher, they will go and trade it in. But the point I'm trying to get at is the fact that this copper looks and feels like hair, the hair on your head. And it's one of the distinguishing features of it being a different type of copper. Copper 1 or copper 2 is one of the ways, and there's a copper 3, and there's some other strands, but those are the two main ones. But there are some, like, some very fine ones, and yeah, it looks like basically orange hair, which kind of puts a neat spin on people that do have orange hair. But I'll get back to that in whatever video I decide to speak about that, whether it's this one later on or a different one. But anyways, so I found that very interesting that, copper is a conductor and electricity flows through copper very well. And some of the copper, it looks like hair, basically feels like hair, the same size as hair, same length, same girth, same, same attributes, features, whatever. So if you read anything or look at anything spiritual that talks about, your hair being antennas, well, I wouldn't go off and say it's crazy. I generally try to keep my hair as long as I can maintain it without being too long. That being said, I also cut some of it off. I don't have a lot of hair. But anyway, so that's besides the point I want to talk about here. I just wanted to put it out there as an interesting fact in case anybody comes along something like that and wants to look into it. I think it's worth looking into. But anyways, and women are more generally are more in tune with nature, and there are more women mediums and channelers and more spiritual in that sense, whereas guys are more, would be more Christian and believing in stuff that we read and we learn, whereas women kind of believe what they feel, where men have to see it to believe it more than women, and they're more in tune with things. But anyways, that's besides the point. So I got into the Jerry Tennant thing. I discussed parts of Initiation into IIH, Initiation into Hermetics by Franz Barton. Talked about specific things about how men and women, men kind of get more distinguished with age, and women sometimes get looking older. And this is mainly speculation, but once again, there are some stats and data on this. The main reason, well, maybe not the main reason, but one of the reasons I believe this is men, even women that are bodybuilders and stuff like that, or just men in general. Like, I shave my face a lot because I got a lot of hair that goes out of my face. And it started happening at a very young age, so testosterone levels, whatever caused that. But I'm 33 years old and I still get a lot of acne, and part of that is because of the fact of when I shave my face, whatever the process is, whether I use shaving cream or not using shaving cream, doesn't they tend to get a lot of pimples and stuff like that. But the point I'm trying to make here is the one I've already made many times about taking the skin off. In Franz Barton, he speaks about in that book, he speaks about having to rub your skin until it's pink, kind of thing, taking off the dead layers of skin. The reason you do that is eventually you can breathe through your pores. And I've went into how this I've learned this on a personal level, being that my oldest son is epileptic. He took 2 grand mal seizures and a bunch of small ones they called petty seizures. And then when we finally figured that out, we talked to the doctor that was in charge of his case at Qi-gong, which is the biggest and one of the most respected children's hospitals here in Canada. It's situated in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. And he said my son can't be around water unless, you're monitoring him or watching him. Shower is not necessarily dangerous, but pools or rivers, big bodies of water. And it's because he has a seizure, he falls in. And I assumed it was just, he's having a seizure. He's not in control of himself. He could just fall in and drown. And then the doctor said yes, but it was because when someone has a seizure, they breathe through their pores. So it made everything that Franz Barton said kind of ring true. Whenever even the medical field recognizes that is a possibility, that our body does that on its own if, it can't, if the brain's impulses are no longer telling it to breathe through the lungs, and if you're not consciously awake during a seizure. So it's kind of like both your subconscious and your conscious are both not incapacitated, not in function of your lungs. So basically some part of your cells take over and breathe through your pores of your skin. which I thought was pretty cool. So when you add all these things I just mentioned together, you can kind of see how we've been able to extend the life of human beings between that and then these surgeries and these pharmaceutical pills. Some of them are bad, some of them are good. I even put a thing on where Jordan Peterson was talking about how seizures, people that he knew, people that he read, spoke about how before they would take a seizure, they would see something, and it would be so terrifying that it would bring on the seizure. And it kind of puts the sleep paralysis, especially for the people that have in the fear, the dark presence, spoke about how before they would take a seizure, they would see something, and it would be so terrifying that it would bring on the seizure. And it kind of puts the sleep paralysis, especially for the people that have in the fear, the dark presence on them, or seeing something dark around them happening, and then your body start doing that. It kind of puts in a little spin on that. And I think I've already said this in a video prior to this, that my son, the one time, the first grand mal seizure I saw him take, he came up the stairs babbling, and he couldn't make him out, which is kind of like his petty seizures. And he would be babbling, and he wouldn't be coherent, but he would be saying something, and he had this fear look all spread out through his face. And then he was looking at his hand, and then from there he looked on top of the fridge as he was coming up the basement stairs, and from there he had this super terrified look on his face, like it looked like he saw something that, wasn't there. I didn't see it, but something that he saw that was there, and then from there, boom, hit the ground. So when I heard that thing that I put on here yesterday, when Jordan Peterson, the second one, when he talked about those people he read, or I forget his relationship to the people he was describing, or the example he gave, but in that example, one was the one guy you would see his double, and if he looked at it, he would take a grand mal seizure, and if he didn't look at it, he wouldn't take a seizure. And the other one, he would see his hand would turn into a devil or a demon. So that is fascinating. And a long time ago, I was just getting into, I was doing the neophyte of the ceremonial magic, Kabbalah, and the great work of self-transformation, and I had my temple set up and all that, and I was feeling pretty good, and I was outside, and I was doing, I forget exactly what, but through the corner of my eye, I looked like I saw a dark presence go across the road towards my house, and being a cocky prick that I am, I, said, I'm not fucking scared of you, I'm protected, bitch, I even opened up the door and say, come on in, and I don't remember seeing it come in or anything to that effect. But a funny thing is, the next day, that was when that grand mal seizure happened. This was at nighttime, so it wasn't even 24 hours from there, but that was at nighttime when I did that. And then the next morning, my son took that grand mal seizure. Now, coincidence, maybe I didn't see anything, maybe it was just a shadow of a car or whatever, and I just assumed, and then put those two things together, and then boom, that happens. I know my stepson Austin, the oldest, that's who I'm talking about, who takes the seizures, is very much like me. We were telling scary stories by a fire a couple years ago at a campsite, and we rented an actual trailer that was there. It stayed on site all year round, but not in the winter time, but you know what I mean. And he got so scared that he went inside, and he was sick to his stomach. He was in so much fear, which is a very strange response to me, because I've never been so scared that I was sick to my stomach. But he was. It's kind of like carnival ride, scared / sickness almost he got. But I thought that was a weird correlation. That's not really what I want to talk about today, but just I think it's an interesting point. Something I meant to make a video about a long time ago, but since I don't see that anymore, I'm not entirely convinced that it may or may not be around or in my house anymore. Like I said, I go back and forth on the whole demon and spirit thing. I do believe in spirits. I do believe in thoughts are kind of like spirits, and I do believe they're around us all the time. Now, to be able to do that to somebody who had never shown any signs of being epileptic or having seizures, and then all of a sudden I do something like that, and that's his first grand mal seizure that happens. That was his first grand mal seizure. He had a lot of petty seizures prior to that, and we went to his doctor and explained the situation. And at that time, I'm my stepfather, but at that time, his real father was in and out of jail, and they didn't hear from him, and it was putting a lot of stress on both boys of ours. Owen was acting out. Austin was very emotional and distant, and even more quiet and shy than ever, and really holding in his emotions. So I just thought it was a strange coincidence that, I did that. But anyway, the doctor chalked all those petty seizures and the weird babblings, because we'd be in the car driving to a baseball game 2 years ago, and he would start doing this weird babbling thing. And the one time he actually, urinated on himself while he was in that state. So we're like, well, something's fucking wrong. And this family doctor chalked it up to nothing. And then, boom, grand mal seizure. I think it was like 6 months later or so. Then, oh, yeah, that could be it. Like, what do you mean could? It obviously is, but, maybe it isn't. Maybe it's something I allowed into my house like a vampire. I allowed it in stupidly, and maybe it's never left. Maybe that's why me and my wife fight so much. Maybe that's why, prior to going back to work, doing this Dark Night of the Soul thing happening to me again, I was having lots of thoughts about using drugs. Thank God I didn't, but I was having lots of thoughts and impulses on using. Not opiates per se, but different stimulants, cocaine, speed, Ritalin, amphetamines, basically, to kind of help me focus and do whatever. So that's another reason why I decided to go back to work, because I chalked that up to getting stir crazy, and working on this podcast. I was kind of distant from that and not really doing it as much as I was in the past. It's easier to put out a lot of videos when you first start because there's so many ideas, and then after a while, you don't want to. For me, anyways, I don't want to keep hitting the same areas, the same fucking information over and over again. But there is power in that, and repeating, and going over and review, and sometimes people want to hear the same shit over and over again to not reaffirm their beliefs, but kind of feel good kind of thing. It's kind of a way when you have like some kind of comfort food or a comfort show whenever you're sad that you watch, and it kind of cheers you up, puts you in a better place. Well, kind of like the same concept. It was kind of like a comforting thing. But anyways, that's besides the point. So I want to get back to what I want to talk about. So all the health stuff I put on here for healing and all that, never really got into healing magic per se. However, I did explain and put on Frederick Xavier's videos about, testimonials about people curing cancer, or quote-unquote curing cancer, which I believe truly 100% is possible. I put on, I even posted Archangel Raphael's sigil, and the video I talked about health and healing, and what you have to do for that basically is, write a petition out to Archangel Raphael using a sigil to call him to you, and being very specific on what you want without being vague, just cure, and, whoever's name. Thank you for curing whoever, in the present tense, or sorry, in the future, basically, or as if it's already happened, rather. I guess that'd be past tense. But sure, where's going with that? Oh yeah. So all that healing and stuff aside, it's very easy to understand how our lifespan has increased. Now, people seem to think we're dying off faster, and there's a lot of controversy around that kind of subject of us being killed, or guinea pigs, or radiation, all that. But all those things aside that are quote-unquote killing us, from the GMOs to the chemtrails to the bad food, the diabetes, the cancer, all these different fucking things, the global warming. We live abnormally long, like doubled and tripled our lifespan from like a century ago, where the average person died at the age of 50. So now we're at a place where most people retire when they're 65, and people die anywhere from 5 years after they retire, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and in different cultures, like China or Japan, Asian people tend to live longer, and we like to put that on the things they eat, such as fucking sushi, and rice and all that. They're eating the alive enzymes, whereas when we cook our food, it's dead enzymes, it's dead animals, it's telling your body death. And there's so much death in our culture, and the TV reaffirms the death and the statistics about cancer and all that. But the notion I wanted to punt is, in taking Bible literally, and different old stories and myths literally, if you were to do that, there would be a lot of stories in there about people living thousands of years, hundreds of years, thousands of years, 2 or 3 lifetimes. In the inner earth stories, same thing. The light down there enables them to live longer and stuff like that, which is cool if that's true, but at the same sense, these stories also make us feel like there's something wrong with us. Like, well, way back then, these people lived a long time, when really you go back in our recent history, and the case is actually the opposite. People haven't been living that long. So you gotta look at that as proof that the Bible is meant to be taken symbolically, meaning if you do these things, maybe you can last this long. You believe in this, maybe you can last that long. But that's kind of the notion I wanted to punt. If our subconscious mind is powerful and we can put whatever we want into it and make the outcome happen with practice and persistence, reaffirming these things, banishing and denying the things we don't want, such as, dying and all this. I'm not saying we should never die or strive to keep everybody alive. What I'm saying is that if we never knew what our age span was, let's say our age span is somewhere between, the average age span is somewhere between 7 years of age to 150, let's say. Yeah, sorry about that. Kind of lost my train of thought, but anyways, yeah. So, whatever. I just said something 65 to 150. Obviously, 150 is not accurate. 115, let's say. But that's another thing. Let's say, hypothetically, let's just say the Bible is true. Obviously, I don't believe that. I'm very adamant and say that I don't believe it is true. I believe it's true in like a symbolic text. Whether something is fiction and non-fiction is kind of irrelevant to me. The stories are meant to teach us stuff. And many people along the years, I forget the guy's name, but he writes stories, and he was making them fictional stories, but yet there were things happening. So that's just proof that we are all tapping into, the same unconscious, or our subconsciouses are all connected. And that's something else I'll make a video about later on, once I get the man's name, and I'll put the proof on there. But anyways, but let's take the Bible literal for a second, and let's say way back, Solomon, or Abraham, or Moses, or, Noah, or, Cain and Abel, or even Adam and Eve. Okay, let's just say these people were real and they were around. Well, back then there wasn't any fucking calendars, or they didn't have a clock. I can't remember the date the clock was actually invented, but it was a big fucking want, such as dying and all this. I'm not saying we should never die or strive to keep everybody alive. What I'm saying is that if we never knew what our age span was, let's say our age span is somewhere between, the average age span is somewhere between 7 years of age to 150, let's say. Yeah, sorry about that. Kind of lost my train of thought, but anyways, yeah. So, whatever. I just said something 65 to 150. Obviously, 150 is not accurate. 115, let's say. But that's another thing. Let's say, hypothetically, let's just say the Bible is true. Obviously, I don't believe that. I'm very adamant and say that I don't believe it is true. I believe it's true in like a symbolic text. Whether something is fiction and non-fiction is kind of irrelevant to me. The stories are meant to teach us stuff. And many people along the years, I forget the guy's name, but he writes stories, and he was making them fictional stories, but yet there were things happening. So that's just proof that we are all tapping into, the same unconscious, or our subconsciouses are all connected. And that's something else I'll make a video about later on, once I get the man's name, and I'll put the proof on there. But anyways, but let's take the Bible literal for a second, and let's say way back, Solomon, or Abraham, or Moses, or, Noah, or, Cain and Abel, or even Adam and Eve. Okay, let's just say these people were real and they were around. Well, back then there wasn't any fucking calendars, or they didn't have a clock. I can't remember the date the clock was actually invented, but it was a big fucking deal when the clock was invented. It was a huge deal, a way to map time, basically. And then we put months on there, and then every year goes by. So, and then now we have timelines. Your baby by the age of 2, I think it's 200 words they're supposed to say, and if your child isn't at that, well, technically they're behind, or they may have a learning disability. And then from there, if the parents, because I was told that about my daughter. And I've said this story before, one of the checks I manifested, had to do with my daughter's ears and my daughter's learning abilities, I never said the learning ability part, but anyways, so she was behind on her learning abilities, and because she kept having these ear infections her first year that she was born. By the time she was 1, she wasn't at the 20 or 50 words she was supposed to be at. And then she was getting close to 2, being that her birthday is in October. It was, that spring. It was the year that she was supposed to turn 2. But that spring, whenever she went in for her checkup, the doctor said, okay, well, she's, 2 years old? I'm like, no, she turns 2 in October, like more than 6 months away. She's like, well, she hit the 50 words for being at 1. I'm like, well, not really. And then, so she sent us for testing for her ears, and then testing for, her speech and all that. And we had to speak to a speech counselor and all this shit. And they were setting up things to possibly put tubes in her ears because they didn't think the water was draining and all that. And so I went hard and put down all the magic about getting money and all that, because I've already did up multiple spells and sigils for getting a 10 grand. I think this would have been the second or the third time. Don't quote me on the timeline. I'd have to look back at my notes and tell you the exact timeline, but I believe this was I think this is my second manifestation. My third. But anyways, we ended up getting it in the 10 grand, but it was because, well, after she went to see the specialist wrote down that, okay, well, she is behind, and it's unclear if that had to do with her ears or if her learning ability had to do with the fact that she couldn't hear. But she wasn't autistic, and she wasn't old enough to test for ADHD, even though most kids with ADHD are actually really smart. So that, to me, is kind of silly how they would assume that that would give her a learning disability. But anyways, so between the ear and the ear disability or whatever, fact that her ears might not be growing properly, so she might be disabled that wise, and between the learning disability, well, they back paid every year, that every month that she was, from the time she was born to the point that we got the check. And it was that Christmas after she was 2. It was right before Christmas, so we got that big fucking check, which helped out huge because I wasn't working at the time, and I was on a leave. We already blew through my first $10,000 check from my job. All right, because when I left my job, my daughter she wasn't a year yet. Let me get that right. She was born in October. I went back to work. It was in March. Yeah, so she was about 6 months. No, that's not true. I got to stay with her until she was a year, and then it was after that year, after her entire first year, because my wife had the first 5 months, and then the next 7 months, so that brings us to her being a year old, and then that March, around the same time, we had that doctor's appointment. So I already had the first 10 grand, and then I was making a spell. I didn't even make actually another spell for that. I was doing for small amounts. But anyways, we ended up getting that second check. But here's my point was, if I would have not believed in magic, say I didn't have magic as an alternative to go to. Fredo talks about this, now that you know magic and you have had results, which is why he also advocates, and that's where I got it from, the advocation for doing small spells first. So you have those proofs, so you have those wins, so you have those completions, those spells that gone right manifested. You have the observation of a scientific experiment that has gone your way, has been successful. Okay, you have it, so it's in your brain. Now for me, I was doing big ones all the time. I was doing big ones for money and trying to find my job and my purpose and all that, and nothing was coming, so starting to lose faith in myself, and that's why I took jobs in the summertime, like for roofing and all that, while the kids were here. And then when the roofing they went back to school and all that, we had my baby set up for daycare for a little bit. We ended up taking her out whenever I stopped working because we couldn't afford to pay for it while I was working, but yet as soon as I went off, money wasn't an issue again because I kept. But anyways, so that manifestation happened because of my daughter, and she doesn't have any learning disability. We don't get a check for her anymore because she's not disabled. She's way over those 200 words and has nothing wrong with her ears. Whereas I have, like I said, multiple friends with girls that have the same fucking problem, and their kids have. There's one couple out of the 3 couples I'm speaking about. Okay, so sorry, one out of the 4 couples I'm speaking about that went to a chiropractor as physio, no, it was chiropractor, and brought their daughter there because they saw an ad somewhere or heard from one of their mutual friends that same issue. So this is like 5, but I don't know that kid. But the example that was given to them, they did it, and I heard it, was that at this chiropractor, he touched a bunch of their pressure points near her ears and was able to relieve the water so that she stopped getting the ear infections, because the water wasn't old water, basically moldy water behind her ears, causing an infection to happen, and she never got them again. So at that point, all my magic was aimed at doing that. I was making her baths every day and blessing the water and making it a healing bath for her ears, and for her to be able to learn how to speak better. You know, my daughter has been always obsessed with water no matter what, and I've been putting the Himalayan sea salt, and when it comes to the bath, also the fucking bath salts there. I forget the name of it, but anyways, they're putting those bath salts in there for if we didn't have Himalayan, or a mixture of both, and all her juice is putting in the Himalayan sea salt because of the Jerry Tennant thing. And like I said, she's never gotten a cold or an ear infection since. And I believed in her so well that she had no issues learning. She just didn't want to talk yet, or whatever the case would be, because of her birthday being in October. So at the beginning of a new year, where, you know, that year, yes, she turns 2 that year, but she doesn't turn 2 at the end of the year. So you're not giving her a full 24 fucking months, or sorry, a full 12 months. You just, you know, my daughter just turned 1 in October. 4 months later, you're expecting her to be at 200 words, even though she's, yeah, okay, this is the year she turns 2, but she doesn't turn 2 for another fucking 9 months. Are you fucking kidding me? I thought that was all bullshit. So between that and the fact that I had magic to turn to, and because, like Frater says, magical practitioners never, why would you ever feel helpless again when you know you can do a spell, and if you can set it and forget it and have absolute faith in yourself because you've already had successful spells happen, then there's nothing to worry about. And that's what I did. And so basically the only thing I was battling was my wife's subconscious mind thinking that there may be an issue. So I kept telling her, like everything else, to not dwell on it, not worry about it. If you're going to think about it in a positive way, as if it's already happened. Whether she did it or not, there's no way for me to know. She says she does. She says it wasn't easy, but she says she did. But I have no way of knowing that. So it was my subconscious mind against hers. And I would tell her to also not tell a bunch of people what's going on. And I didn't say why, but the reason was to not get everybody's subconscious mind in the way. But you can see, I hope you can see where I'm going with this. Where I'm going is, you know, we put these timetables on these milestones for children, or for people in general. By this age, you should be doing this. By this age, this should be developed. And those milestones are good to a certain extent, but they shouldn't be like, oh, if it doesn't happen, this is what your kid has, because then the parents believe that, and their belief will fucking it'll manifest in their child, basically. You know, it's how you use your power, and how these doctors stay, you know, in there, and they're not doing anything wrong. They're just diagnosing kids and trying to be able to help and prevent these things from happening in the first place. But, you know, you bring your kid to a doctor and they say, oh, your kid has this disorder or this disease. Well, I want a second opinion, you know. Thank God that's happening now, but prior to that happening, kids are getting left, right, and center diagnosed. That's probably one of the reasons we have so many kids with ADHD, ADD, and autism, when it's basically just because of the belief of the fucking parent and the fucking doctor's fucking analysis. You know, how many people have been given a year, 2 years, 6 months to live and overpassed it because they fucking refuse to accept that, you know? That's kind of the point I made. But anyway, so back to the Bible and the invention of the calendar and the clock and all that. So that wasn't back in the Bible. So if we were to hypothetically, when it's basically just because of the belief of the fucking parent and the fucking doctor's fucking analysis. You know, how many people have been given a year, 2 years, 6 months to live and overpassed it because they fucking refuse to accept that, you know? That's kind of the point I made. But anyway, so back to the Bible and the invention of the calendar and the clock and all that. So that wasn't back in the Bible. So if we were to hypothetically say the Bible is real, which once again, I don't think that's the case, but if we were hypothetically to believe that was real, then it's a good argument for my point that, you know, if those stories in the Bible are in fact real, and these people did live as long as they said, or at least, you know, obviously the Bible gets exaggerated down the line and stories changed. So, you know, if there's a person living for 2,000 to 3,000 years in the Bible, or at least 1,000 years, then, you know, maybe that's more like 300 years or 200 years. But the point is, they lived a lot longer than we do now. So if that's the case, and, you know, they didn't have fucking months back then, they didn't have days back then, they didn't have hours back then, and they didn't have a clock back then, you know, or they did and they didn't believe in it like we do. You know, we're on the clock and we say things over and over again. It's not even necessarily the fact that we see people die at specific ages and we just assume that's going to happen to us, which, you know, totally plays a part in this. But I think it mostly or more has to do with the fact that we go around saying stuff like, oh, because I used to say as a kid stuff like, oh, I hope I don't live to fucking 85 where I don't have any money left for my fucking whatever, my wife's long gone and I'm fucking miserable, I'm in a diaper and my fucking kids have to come change my ass, you know what I mean? And right there, I'm affirming my future for myself. I'm saying this is what's going to happen, basically, especially if I picture myself doing it and put any fear emotion into that. So like I said earlier, if we've never known that the human body decays, dies, starts falling apart at these specific ages, if we don't see it in movies over and over that are tricking our subconscious mind, because our subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between real and fake, if we didn't see those and didn't have Hollywood putting that in our face, having doctors tell us all these things happen to us and that we can't beat it and that, you know, oh, there's a chance, sign up for this surgery and maybe we can do something, and then all putting fucking fear in us that, you know, we're gonna fucking die from these things. If we never knew that, could the human potential be a lot higher? And if what I'm saying is true, if the human potential, if we have the potential to live a lot longer, but there's been a hijacking of that information to the point where our movies, our education systems, our scientific, our scientific experiments, all these things that we do, if these things have all been done intentionally, so we believe that we live, you know, if we get to 80, 90, or 100, we're lucky. We're lucky to get that old if we're not in diapers, shitting on ourselves, have Alzheimer's, cancer, diabetes, whatever the case is. You know, has this been done on purpose, or has it just been generation after generation cursing ourselves and thinking that, you know, we're better than everybody else? And I don't know how you want to go with that, but that was the idea I wanted to punt here. And I think it makes for a damn worthwhile experiment for yourself to try to, if you're going to think anything is bullshit out there, you know, the monetary system, if you start thinking the monetary system is bullshit and you're not ready to go off grid and get rid of your social or SIN card or whatever and start making promissory notes once you take away your all capitals entity and you become a living person and you're no longer lost at sea and you claimed your birth, your live birth, not your death certificate, meaning your birth certificate. If you're not ready to do all that, well, then thinking the monetary system is bullshit and fake and, you know, is crooked and only the rich are all greedy assholes and all that, well, none of that's going to serve you and you're just going to stay in hell. And, well, what's the point of living long if that's the case? But if you're willing to do that, then that's great. Put your time and focus into there. I'm definitely willing to do that myself. Not at the moment because I'm currently working, but soon enough. And when I do get all that on the go, I will totally keep you guys posted on exactly how and what I'm doing. Probably after this Christmas is something I'll get going again. But I think the next notion, after you're going through the elemental grades and you go through a couple dark nights of the soul and all that, and you come into some, you know, some spiritual, esoteric, fucking meaning of life knowledge, and you start realizing that, you know, we have the potential to do some pretty cool and crazy fucking things. We have the potential to be able to do amazing things and lift ourselves up and heal ourselves and all that. If you can realize this, and you do realize this, well, to me, you got nothing to lose with an experiment like this to try to make your life last longer. I remember a long time ago, before I got into the ceremony of magic, I was listening to Qi-gong, and Qi-gong is the spirit that comes through the man. I can't remember the man's name, but he told a story about, you know, whenever he finally got through to his partner to listen to him, that he wasn't going crazy, that this was a spirit trying to talk through him and all this. Now, whether you believe in Qi-gong or not is irrelevant, but the story, I just want you to take the symbolism out of the story. What he said was, he told him that he can control his cells, he can talk to his cells. And there's a lot of information out there on this. It's part of the reason I talked about Jerry Tennant and all this in the beginning, which kind of set the stage. But he told them that he had to get a hold of his cells and talk to his cells and find a way to communicate to his cells and tell his cells what he wants to do, because the cells are going to run on autopilot. Your cells are going to run on the programming that you put in your head. You can't necessarily completely directly always talk to your cells with your conscious mind. You can do it through your subconscious mind. So if you manage to put a subconscious program in there, then this is not what Kryan said. This is what I'm telling you that I know that is true and what I believe. That you can subconsciously program your cells to do whatever the fuck you want. And that's basically kind of what you're doing whenever you're calling stuff to you. You're programming your cells, everybody's cells around you. You're tapping into everybody's subconscious mind, affecting their cells to do your bidding in a manner of speaking. But he told the story of that. His analogy or metaphor or simile was that every day during a meditation or whatever, the man, not Kryon, but the man who Kryon comes to, and I can't fucking remember his name, but anyways, I do advocate looking it up, because it's some good spiritual wisdom, whether it's true or not. It's good spiritual wisdom he gives out there. But every day he would go to the phone, and this was like an internal phone, through a meditation to a visualization exercise, and you go to that phone, and I don't know if I can't remember if he was calling or he was waiting for the call. And anyways, he would either call, ring, 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 nobody pick up. Another day go by, he would try the exercise again, ring, ring, nobody pick up. Or he would just sit there by the phone waiting for it to ring. Nothing would happen. And finally, one day, the phone rang, or they picked up on the other end, and he was able to tell his cells that he wanted them to, I forget how he fucking put it. God damn it, if I find this clip, I'm going to put it on here so you can hear it, okay? But he said that he was going to have his cells only kill themselves off every 2 days, or the way he worded it, he was basically telling his cells that he didn't want them to die as fast. He wanted them to, instead of every 24 hours, whatever the process was of the cells rejuvenating, being born, living, and then dying, recreating, born, living, dying, recreating. And that, instead of doing that, he wanted that to happen like every 2 days or not, and that could be debated if that's actually healthy or not. But the point of the story was he was able to extend his life. And this is how he did it. He told his cells that instead of whatever the process is until the age that, he dies and getting weaker and weaker and weaker, he was going to make it last longer, this process. And, I'm not telling you to do it that way. I'm telling everybody to find a way to put a sigil, a spell, whatever into your body, getting rid of the programming in your head that you're going to die at whatever age is set for you. Doing your birth chart, going through your birth chart, and if there's physical, there's psychological, mental, there's circumstantial interpretations of your birth chart. And plugging in that information in YouTube, all the different signs, you're going to get some of those. And there's specific heart, and if there's physical, there's psychological, mental, there's circumstantial interpretations of your birth chart. And plugging in that information in YouTube, all the different signs, you're going to get some of those. And there's specific houses, kind of circles around that talk about how you're going to die, kind of thing. I've already mentioned that before. Saturn or Mars and specific things will kind of tell you that. So if you have one that kind of circles around, if you have an interpretation that you actually believe or think is legit or whatever about dying a specific way, well, then I would get rid of that programming first and foremost and say that you're going to, whatever. I don't know how to word this because I haven't actually done this yet, and the reason why I'm bringing it up is because I'm going to start working on it. But I think it's something that it's something I want to talk about for a while, because it's always been something I wrote in my book many times, that if we never knew that we only live to X amount of years, 65 to 85, anywhere in there, or even 105 if we're lucky. If we never knew that the average human being's organs, cells, body can only last till whatever time, would we actually die? Because once I got into magic and I understood the ins and outs, as I do, meaning you program as a kid. So when it comes to death and when you're going to die, I think it has to do with everybody in your life that died. So the young people, if you had people that were your age in elementary school and high school and your 20s and your 30s, all the way up to, whatever age you are now, all those people that were the same age as you that died, put that programming in your head that it's possible that you could die any moment. And if you've witnessed children crib death, or even babies who never came out of their mom dying, then you put that programming in your head that that's possible to happen to you when you're pregnant, depending on your fear, or if let's say one of those things stuck that you feared, something like that, then there's a good chance that that might happen to you when the time comes that you get pregnant and you're worried about, not carrying full term. If that's something that you actually worried about on multiple times, and then things happened, like you fell or you got hit by a car or whatever, then yeah, there's a good chance that that programming is going to take hold, because, you're adding fear into those thoughts, and then boom. And, anybody who died when you were a kid, in your teens, in your 20s, at a certain age, of old age is what they would call it, anything from after retirement to whatever, then that programming has been set in your head for when you have a potential window for dying. And same with anybody who died before that, in their 30s, committing suicide. All these factors have programmed you to be able to die from anywhere from before you were even born to the oldest person you witnessed dying. And then you add into the effect the TV shows you watch, whether it's these Grey's Anatomies, medical shows where people die left, right, and center, from the people working there to the random people from other people's family members, whatever. All the stories, it's not even just what you see on the TV, it's the stories they tell hypothetical about, someone in the hospital talking about the age that their parents died as a kid. That's also going into your mind. So all this death has been programmed into your mind, telling you that people die between the ages before 0 to, less than 100, basically. Most of the time, there's not too many people you see over 100. Yet, I played on here clips where Greg Braden is talking with people in different cultures who are over the age of 100, enjoying talking and still walking around at the age of like 105 to 110, 115 fucking years old. And these cultures that don't have TVs, that don't believe in these things that we believe. For a civilization so advanced as we are very stupid, because, you'd think whenever we figure this stuff out that, we would somehow get it out to everybody. But yet we have secret societies and special magical orders that want to keep this stuff hidden from everybody. So nobody gets this information, and no one can outlive, the age we're supposed to outlive. So the point of all this is the fact that, if you have somebody in your family who's dying, whether it's from a disease or it's just old age right now, okay, there are things you can do to try to help that if that's what you think is right. And I don't ever believe in playing God per se. And I have a couple of people, I have one person in my family that, I was going to try to help. And I've done certain things to try to help and all that. And I come to realize that it's not really my place to try to alter his ending, his, quote-unquote fate, so to speak. So I just kind of leave it alone now. And anytime I think about it, I do the same thing I do for any of my manifestations, especially if I'm in a good, loving place. If that's the thought that comes to my mind, then that's the thought I think about. If, like, whenever I'm tearing up because I'm listening to a song or a movie or something my daughter did that was cute, well, if that person comes into my head, well, then I am grateful for the fact that he was able to stay with us until the age of whatever age I think he should live to, and that he's been able to have a normal life and enjoy certain things and blah, 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 blah. That's how I deal with that, because the person is younger than me that I'm talking about. So that was the point of the whole thing today, was the fact that, if you believe, hypothetically, like I said, if the Bible is something you believe that is real, and you're looking at the age things in the beginning and you're thinking that, well, we're not living that long, it's because they're killing us with the chemtrails and all that. It's not. That's there to make you think that once again. The fact that we die at the ages we die, the elites groups, that whoever is implementing this, and maybe no one really knows about this. Maybe we are so many generations past the people that actually had this info in our society anyways. I'm not talking about the native societies or the other societies that actually had this information that are very close to magical system societies, but in our society, whoever had this information, then there's a good chance that maybe there's nobody out there that even knows this anymore, except for the magical people, the witches, and all these different mythologies that believe in this. But unless you put this belief into action, then you're really not going to do anything about it. But there might not be anybody who remembers that. Yeah, we can live this long. Maybe that died. Maybe the last person that had that info died off without ever giving it to anybody, and it died off with him. Is kind of what I'm trying to say here. But if you take the Bible real and you see these stories, and then you could easily assume that, okay, well, our government is killing us because look at the Bible. These people live for thousands of years, hundreds of years, and now we can only live to like fucking 65 to 85. Like, this is ridiculous. But in all honesty, going by the actual data, consensus, all these different surveys that were done way back when, in like 100 years ago, 200 years ago, where we have actual records of people, their ages, the majority of people died at certain ages. It was a lot younger than it is now. The evolution of the mind, people in past histories that wrote books, whether you want to believe they're symbolic or not. If you believe it's symbolic and you believe that they're talking to God or spirit or channeling stuff, there is evidence there that our mind, how it is now, is not the same way it was back when these people wrote these books. Meaning that if these people were able to connect their subconscious, or the certain things happened and their brain developed before the majority of the people's brains that developed there, if they had the first brains with the specific parts that we now have today, that everybody has today, all right, then there's a good chance that they weren't channeling God, they were just channeling their own subconscious mind, or whatever deities, divinity, spirits come through the subconscious mind, elements, elementals, whatever. And it's another good argument for why we now don't have any of these spiritualities that I study, that I try to promote you guys to study. Any form of witchcraft, any form of ceremonial magic, any kind of magic, period, any kind of mythology, period, are worth looking into, because these are the old religions that enabled people to do certain things. And we have more capability with our brain today than we ever have. And there has been an assault, whether it's on purpose or by accident, or just, technology just started going so fast that we couldn't keep up with it. And it's so alluring to us to sit there on our phones all day long, because there's so many different apps and ways to have fun on a phone. And I'm not going to lie, these video games and different things to do on a phone are fun, and they can stop you from doing anything important. Just like anything else. It's like if you're on drugs and you can't do anything because you're so high or whatever. Well, these things on phones and TV shows are meant to kind of put you in a trance, and whether that's on purpose or by accident doesn't matter. Whether they're actually putting chemtrails and poison in our food and water doesn't matter. The fact is that we don't live as long as we probably could, and they want you to think that they are actually killing us, so that when you die, your story is going to help program others to connect their subconscious, or the certain things happened and their brain developed before the majority of the people's brains that developed there. If they had the first brains with the specific parts that we now have today, that everybody has today, all right, then there's a good chance that they weren't channeling God, they were just channeling their own subconscious mind, or whatever deities, divinity, spirits come through the subconscious mind, elements, elementals, whatever. And it's another good argument for why we now don't have any of these spiritualities that I study, that I try to promote you guys to study. Any form of witchcraft, any form of ceremonial magic, any kind of magic, period, any kind of mythology, period, are worth looking into, because these are the old religions that enabled people to do certain things. And we have more capability with our brain today than we ever have. And there has been an assault, whether it's on purpose or by accident or just, technology just started going so fast that we couldn't keep up with it, and it's so alluring to us to sit there on our phones all day long because there's so many different apps and ways to have fun on a phone. I'm not going to lie, these video games and different things to do on a phone are fun, and they can stop you from doing anything important, just like anything else. It's like if you're on drugs and you can't do anything because you're so high or whatever. Well, these things on phones and TV shows are meant to kind of put you in a trance, and whether that's on purpose or by accident doesn't matter. Whether they're actually putting chemtrails and poison in our food and water doesn't matter. The fact is that we don't live as long as we probably could, and they want you to think that they are actually killing us, so that when you die, your story is going to help program other people's minds. And if you believe that it's because of all these reasons that I just named, the chemtrails, the GMOs, the fluoride, all these different things, the different pills, the global warming, the pollution, all these things, if you believe that's what stops you from living so long, well then whoever is orchestrating this occult attack, basically, to stop the occult knowledge from getting out so people don't live super long. Because, technically we have a population problem. I don't know if that's true or not, but we have an overpopulation problem, apparently. So why would they want people to live longer? You know what I mean? But anyways, that was what I wanted to talk about today, and I think it's a valid point, and I think it's definitely worth looking at. Maybe you don't want to live long. Maybe you have a shitty life, and, that's part of the process. You're supposed to go through your initiation. You're supposed to do your best to come out on top and fix your life. And once you fix your life, by the time you fix your life, if you're fucking in your 50s and you don't get to enjoy it, well, that's why this is a good exercise to do. If you could be that 50 or 60-year-old that still looks and feels 30, 20, whatever, 40, doesn't matter. If you feel younger than you are, then that's great. There's a lot of these things like if you're an earth angel or an empath and all that, and the characteristics are, do people say you look younger than you do and all this shit, and they put that on there, and I've always resonated stuff like that because I want to believe that that's true, but that could be just stuff to make you feel good about yourself and all that, but it doesn't mean that we can't fix and try to make ourselves live younger. It's all about programming your mind. If you program your mind to be unbothered and unaffected by disease, if you program yourself to not be affected by TV shows that program you, if you reject the programming of everybody who's died in your life to add to you dying at a specific age, if you remove all that and you insert, an age that you think is appropriate for you to pass on at, or an unlimited or whatever, it's totally worth the risk. If you put in there that you're not going to keep waking up and feeling older and getting older, and your body's going to keep deteriorating, and you're going to keep losing function and not being able to do things as good as you used to, if you can get rid of that programming, it's definitely worth a shot, right? Out of all the fucking experiences, because the longer you're here, the easier it is to do things, the more wisdom you're going to collect. So yeah, you might be having a hard time now, but if by the time you're 40 and 50 you still feel like you're 30 and 20, did you really waste any time? If you're 50 and 60 and you feel like you're 30 or 40, did you really waste all those years trying to learn the right lessons and try to get these things done? I don't think so. I think in that case, if you're that age and if you're in your 60s but you feel like you're 50, well, you've got two chances to do your 50s over again, because by the time you're sick, but by the time you're 70, well, you're either going to still feel 50 or like 55, or you're going to feel 60, right? And I believe that's how this shit works. I believe that it's a possibility. If you believe it, then it can be done. The people that are living to 115 in these other societies and these cultures in the world don't watch the shows we watch, don't eat the things we eat, don't do all these things, don't believe the things we believe. We believe in God and Jesus coming back from the dead and all that, like in taking Christianity, for example, but yet we believe that, we're all going to die, have a heart attack, cancer, whatever the case is. So, I think it's a worthwhile experiment, and I'm going to definitely be working on my scripts to remove that programming and insert new programming, so that, even if I have to waste from age, and I don't mean waste in a bad way, but say I do have to keep working before I do find my passion. Well, if I get an extra 10 years, if I can still feel 30 when I'm in my 40s, and I can still feel 30 or 35 when I'm in my 50s, well, then I really didn't waste any time at all. And I think that's a worthwhile experiment. I think if if time and aging and not having enough time and not doing specific things is one of your fears, well, this is one of the best things you can do. Instead of trying to program into yourself that I want this done, I want this done, I want to do this, I want to do this, well, these things take time. Like I said, it all depends on how fast you can get that programming in there or get that spell in there, and then, following all the rest of the laws of magic, being able to set it and forget it, and, not being a negative state, so that whenever if you're always in a positive state, then you keep having positive thoughts and keep accepting those positive thoughts. But if you're programming that you have from a kid with all these people that died, and you're not banishing all the negativity, all the bad, and especially death and harmful thoughts that come to you, especially circling these aspects, if you're not doing that, then you're certainly going to get it done faster. And if even worse, if you say stuff like, well, we're not going to live forever, well, you can only live so long, well, everybody's got to die someday, blah, blah, blah. If you're saying stuff like that, then yeah, I would expect yourself to take years off your life. I'm not going to go as far as say, you can smoke, you can drink, you can do drugs, you can do all these dangerous sports, you can drive all reckless, and if you put the right programming in, you can cheat cheat death. I'm not going to go as far and say that, but if you take care of your body, you don't worry about it, and you do try to get in touch and take good care of your cells, and try to eat as healthy as you possibly can without watching the stuff that tells you you're killing yourself. Because even YouTube and the independent media, the truth community will over and over tell you that your people are killing you and you're killing yourself, and all these things are in the air. The thing I watched about the chemtrails and the patents could be not even a truth movement. It could literally be just something to reinforce that our own governments or elite groups or Illuminatis are trying to kill us. It could be all that purpose is for, so that people believe that, well, not only am I just going to die of natural causes or get a disease and all that my government's also trying to kill me. Keep putting these doomsday things out there so that people keep believing in that. And then if enough people believe it, let's say it works like a union, and you get the majority of the people to believe there's a doomsday prediction, and that can actually cause a doomsday prediction, which is kind of one of my beliefs, by the way. If you get the majority of the population to believe that a doomsday situation is possible, whether it's war or a catastrophe or whatever, then it's going to happen, because we're all connected to Earth. Even the ones that aren't doing the magic and trying to connect to the Earth, they are still connected in some small way. The people like us that are doing the initiations and doing the grades and grounding every day, we have a better connection to Earth. Therefore, if we're not focusing on the stuff that is killing us, we're focusing on helping humanity and trying to postpone our life, then we're actually fighting against these forces twice as hard, because they're trying to tell everybody that they're going to die soon, and we're trying to tell ourselves and anybody else that no, we can postpone our life. No one said we had to die at this age. Everybody told us it just automatically happens, but there's proof now of cultures that actually outlive and can be healthy and moving around and functioning and still drinking alcohol from time to time at 115 years old. Like, that's fucking amazing. And if they want to throw the Bible in your face, well, then throw that back in their face. Be like, well, then you tell me, back in the day when Abraham and Solomon and Moses and all these motherfuckers that lived super long, they didn't have clocks and time, and they didn't worry about all these diseases. There's no mention of these different diseases in there, except for maybe epilepsy, but they thought it was like someone being possessed by the devil, which, according to Jordan Peterson and other people, that is probably more likely that they are possessed by some spirit or something like that. I'm not saying that's true or false. I don't know. But point is, if they want to throw shit in your face and tell you you're crazy, that you're going to have to die, yeah, you're going to have to die, but you want to believe the Bible, literally, we'll go read these motherfuckers. And then tell me what you fucking think about my theory. Oh, well, that's just symbolic. Well, how can the Bible be both symbolic and literal at the same time? It can't. It's one or the other. Which I don't believe either. I don't believe in just black or white. I believe in some gray. I believe the Bible could be both, real and fake all at the same time. It can be accurate and inaccurate all at the same time. But anyways, that's what I'm going to leave everybody with today. I know it's a little weird of an episode, but the next time I come on, I'm going to be talking about some more substantial stuff, somewhere between astrology and egregores, or servitors, and hopefully some techniques that are more of use than just some general information and shit maybe you should try, whatever. And I will try to find that episode of Qi-gong and anything that has to do with this and put little clips on here for you to hear it for yourself, not just out of my mouth. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you have a great fucking day. Bye now.
Dear ones, I'm Cryon of Magnetic Service. This evening, I wish to expose a very important system to you in ways we have not before. We're going to call it the beginning of the information about innate. We have given channels before, and one of them was the mysterious innate. We have given you some of the attributes about your own body, and we wish to enhance it tonight. I have been giving information to my partner, and he receives it through intuition. He's even begun to build a program around it, and yet it's never been publicly channeled. It is the integrity of the way that I work with him that says that many of these things should be put to you and given to you so that you can hear it and analyze it. At the same time, he begins to teach it, so that others will know what he knows as he begins his process as well. All that to say that, dear ones, it is time for teaching to begin, which is beyond what you had in the past. It starts to identify and show you some of the grandness inside. Earlier today, I said I know who's here. It is a family that I speak to in the room. It is a family who listens to these channelings. And I again broach the timelessness of what we are doing. The information presented here will last a long time, and there will be those hearing it right now for the first time, and yet much time will have passed since it was given in your time. And it will be as new to them as it is to you. The energy will be just as fresh. And I say to you that in this timeless attribute of the reality that I am in, I see the potentials of all listeners forever. I know who's listening. That may be difficult for you. Dear ones, I want to tell you about a process in your body. Not only mysterious to you because it is one that does not present itself in 3D, but elusive, where you don't know how to get to it really. Not completely. And yet it belongs to you so well that it is you. And you might ask, how can something be inside me, Cryon, that I don't know about? And I will say yet again to you that you are not working at full capacity. And that this is the subject of this year. The recalibration of humanity includes an evolved spirit. And we're going to talk a little more about that in this channeling. But let us first identify makes innate so mysterious to you is that it is not a brain function. It is perhaps one of the only systems in the body that is not centralized. This is difficult. It has not been discovered. It is not known in medical science, but it has been seen over and over. What you have in DNA is very difficult to explain. The trillions of DNA molecules in your body are all in communication with each other all the time. This has to be the way of it. If you think about what DNA does, how does your body know which kind of cell it needs and where it needs it? It is innate that is responsible for that literally at birth. The DNA, you might say, is truly esoteric central control. It is the field around the trillions of pieces of DNA that knows itself as one entity. The one entity is innate. So you might say that it is the combination of the DNA cells in your body seen as one thing that is what you call smart body innate. It is decentralized. There is no one organ of the body that is responsible for innate. Every single part of the body is involved in smart body systems. You're used to finding out things through innate, with muscle testing, the kinesiology, the tapping, all of the other systems that give you what we will call smart feedback. In order to find out what the smart body wants to tell you. And those who facilitate this know that they are talking to a field in the body and not an organ, not a gland, not the brain. So the first thing we want to tell you about innate is that it is body-wide. Anything that has DNA in you, and it's usually that which you can think of perhaps a major part of you, like the heart. You feel you're talking to that, but you're not. Innate is in your toenail and in your hair. Innate is everywhere DNA is, in any form that DNA exists. It's unique and it's you. Now, I've told you that medical science has seen this, but they don't understand it. But let me give you the example. When a human being has the spinal cord severed in an accident, it is severed. We have talked about this before. Isn't it odd that it doesn't grow back? When everything else in the body is programmed to regenerate, the cells do not regenerate in a way where the nerves grow back. We have also told you there will be a time when it does, and that this is all part of the evolved human that is coming. But let us talk about the way it is now. Let us see that you know or have seen a paraplegic. A man or a woman in a chair who can move nothing but their head. Now, does it make sense to you that all of the nerves are severed in the spinal cord, and yet the things in the body that depend on the brain signals continue to work? The heart continues continues to beat, but you are told that the heart needs the brain to send the signals. You're told that the timing is in the brain for the signals to be in the right pattern. Digestion continues. Reproduction continues. Most of the body functions below the neck are uninterrupted, and yet the brain is not sending signals anymore. How do you explain it? Medical science actually has a word for it. And the word would indicate that something takes over innately in the body. It's innate. It is the DNA that keeps you alive. The DNA of this body actually connects with the brain, and the signal are still sent in a quantum way. Remember, the DNA field is in connection with the full body all the time, even though the spinal cord is severed. The brain continues to send the signals, the DNA field receives them and sends them to the heart, to the digestive, everything but the muscles. I ask you to look at this, and you'll know that I am right. So you have proof of this. Innate, the smart body will keep you alive, even if the wires to the brain are severed. Innate is smart. It is why we call it the smart body. The innate is smarter than that which you will call the survival organ, which is the brain. Innate is connected to something you should know about. Innate is connected to the higher self. Innate is connected to the Akashic record of the human being, because in the DNA, those things are there. We gave you information so long ago about the layers of DNA, and now we're telling you that there is a cumulative DNA consciousness in its field called innate. It's time for you to think of your DNA as one thing, not trillions of things. Science does not even acknowledge that DNA can communicate with itself, and yet it has to, in order for you to work the way you work. The beauty of what we're teaching is this, is that the corporeal body, one that the brain controls, is beginning to build a bridge to innate. And this bridge is going to be through intuition and will create eventually a time where you will be your own medical intuitive, where you will know not only what is going in your body and what is going on in your body, but also what's going on in your Akash. I have three things I want to describe to you today. None of them are a review. Not really. They're a revelation. I want to tell you what innate does, and I want to tell you that innate has programming. Innate is programmed for something you should know. Whereas the human brain is programmed for corporeal survival, innate is programmed for spiritual survival. You might ask, what is the mandate? What is the prime directive, if you want to use that terminology, for the human soul? Why are you here? Your brain keeps you alive, dear ones. It helps you with everyday existence. It tries to keep you safe. It remembers what doesn't work, day to day, corporally. But innate, I want you to think for a moment about what innate knows. Innate knows what the ancients knew. how long humanity had on this planet before it would have to make a decision. Innate knows that. Your DNA knows that. What is the prime directive of innate? To do everything it can for you to allow an awakening to take place, to allow humanity to go across the bridge and move into an ascended planet status. That is the prime directive. Spiritual survival, everything is designed around that. To push you forward in any way possible into spiritual awareness. That is what innate is for. In the process, innate also crosses the bridge with corporeal chemistry in very, very different ways. Innate is responsible for spontaneous remission. You want to know where that comes from?
Monday.com is a team management.
How can you have a disease disappear overnight? How is it possible that the corporeal body can react and cleanse itself of something so unbalanced overnight? How can tissue grow at an accelerated rate to give healing overnight? I have just given you things that the hospitals have seen over and over. They have x-rayed them. There is no way, they would say. And yet, it is a miracle. No, it isn't. It's innate. That's the power that you have. When innate finally starts to build the bridge to the corporeal self, the human being as you know it will disappear. And the one that takes its place will have a long life, able to repair itself, even grow limbs back. That is how it was designed, dear ones. That should make sense to you. But let's talk about it today. Ryan, Book 1. All those years ago, I talked about something that innate is responsible for. I said it's time to drop your karma. Where is karma stored? It is a result of past life experience pulled forward through the veil into a reincarnate body. It is an energy of unfinished business. That's karma. It's in the DNA, and innate governs it. And so, when we said it's time to drop your karma, how did we say to do it? You must talk to your body, talk to your cells, and say, I am done with the energy of the past, I drop the karma, I move forward. These were the first instructions you ever had from me about a process that crosses the bridge from the corporeal self to the innate. Pure intent. You address your body in a way that is so pure that the body sees it and acts. And that is how karma is dropped. Now I want you to see what was not stated. Would it make sense to you that as you come into an energy as an old soul where karma is no longer needed, wouldn't the smart body innate drop it by itself? And the answer is no. Now listen, because this is the teaching of the day. You see, innate, as smart as it is also programmed. And it's programmed in a survival for spiritual self, and karma has always played a part in that. You have got to deprogram innate. It has a bias. It's been doing this as long as you've been a human. It was designed to do certain things in a certain way, and consciousness is the key to change it. It always was. It always will be. Your free choice is needed to deprogram what I will call the instruction sets of innate. So dropping your karma was the first instruction we ever gave you. Now there's more, and it gets more complicated. Innate is programmed to try to keep you into spiritual survival, and there is an older system in innate that it still has, and you've got to deprogram it. This reprogramming, you might say, through consciousness is not hard. Your consciousness, through pure intent, is king. You've always known you can change your chemistry, heal your body. Talking to innate is the key. How would you like to trigger your own spontaneous remission?
That right there is Oksana. Oksana went from...
Think about that. You can do it. This is the next step, dear ones. Talking to a cellular structure and controlling your chemistry is one thing. Controlling innate is another. It's you. You have permission. We told you some things in a channeling recently. We told you that affirmations are important. Now, affirmations are not repetitive phrases of meaningless consequence. And you know the difference. If you've memorized things that people told you to memorize, and mindlessly you repeat them over and over in order to accomplish a certain number of times, nobody is listening. Nobody. Because it is not seen as anything but verbose conversation with yourself. That's it. Consciousness that is focused is pure intent. You mean it. Affirmations, especially the ones you create yourself out of your own consciousness, put to your body on a regular time schedule on purpose. You have an appointment with your innate and you're going to talk to it, and here is the affirmation. And that is the way it works. You must talk to your innate as your best friend, as a human being sitting in front of you, and you're going to have a conversation. Would you then just repeat things over and over to another person? And the answer is no. You give them the credibility of intelligence to listen. That is the credibility you must have with innate. Innate is your smart body. And it's time for you to reprogram what it thinks is your spiritual survival, because innate has not crossed that marker with you. Your consciousness has crossed into this new energy, and now it's time for you to reprogram everything. Recalibration, dear ones, is not automatic. Old soul, there are a few things you should know. Do you find it interesting that innate knows all about your past lives, but you don't? How is that for a system? How would you like to know more? What is it that you have in your past lives that you could use today? We've talked about this. Mining the Akash is done through free choice of consciousness talking to your innate. Muscle testing, yes. Tapping, body talk, affirmations, whatever you can do that circumvents the corporeal logic of the human brain will work for innate. You have got to think different. You are used to quantity, repetition, loudness, perhaps. You're used to linear concepts to change things within you. Allopathic, no. Homeopathy counts on innate to work. Did you know that? A tincture sends a signal to the smart body to make the changes that the tincture has intent for. That's the reason for homeopathy remedies. They're designed specifically to send a signal to innate. Do they work? Oh, yes. You see, there's a whole concept of who you are that lurks in a place that we're asking you to connect to. If you connect to innate, you can start finding out about who you used to be. Innate will give you what you need to know because it's smart. You can ask innate who you were in a past life, and it will not tell you if it is not important for your spiritual survival. But it will give you karma to push you into areas that it thinks you need for spiritual survival. So let us talk about